Morena koutou, welcome to our 21 September meeting of Te Puna Kōrero. I will open the meeting and ask Councillor Wihapi to lead us in our karakia.
Can't hear.
Thank you very much, everyone. Starting off with apologies. I know we have apologies from Councillor Nalo and from Taku Parai for lateness. I also note that Councillor Ford is online. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Duncan, thank you very much. All in favour? Opposed? That is carried. We're going to start off today with public forum. We have a speaker, Graham Johns, who is going to speak. Graham, if you'd like to come up to the front of the room. Just down here. So Graham, you have 5 minutes total to be able to speak. That includes time for questions from councillors. You'll hear a bell at 4 minutes, so you've got 1 minute left at that point. And if you want questions, that's probably a good point to be able to wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillors, Mayor, if you start my 5 minutes after that introduction, that'd be great because it goes very quick.
We'll start it now, thanks.
I come before Council to get some clarification on a few things that I have heard or read in the Kapi Mana. So I'd like to quickly start, because I know time goes very quickly. I'd like to talk about the speed limits on the roads that I heard, and that's fine, but I don't understand why the speed limit from Porirua to Titai Bay on the Titai Bay Causeway was reduced from 70 to 60. I see a road which is in good condition. I see a pedestrian walkway on the western side, which only has parks and everything alongside it, no housing, no nothing. So I don't see the danger there and why it needed to be reduced. Land Transport's submission to the council, I was here fortunate to hear it, about that the faster you go, the bigger the mess. I agree with that after 35 years in the fire service. However, I don't think that is the problem. The problem is people, education. That's where the problem lies. The speed limit is only a guide if conditions are perfect. Low traffic, low pedestrians, good weather, then you can do the speed limit. Common sense says you reduce it if that's not the case. So I'd like to know why you decided to reduce that. I'd like to move to one of my favourite topics, I suppose, and that is White House Road, where the what I call the Memorial Park has been built to appease us Titai Bay residents. Sorry, Mayor. Because I think some of us feel that the Army Hall that was there was left to deteriorate to such an extent by previous councils, not just here, to where we couldn't save it and it was destroyed. So now we have a park going up, but I see there's RSJs that have gone up, there's laminated timber that's gone up, and then when I said to one of the workmen, oh, you better screw down the roof when you put it on because it's going to be high winds, I understand there is no roof. So therefore there is no protection in the summer from the sun, there is no protection from the weather in winter, so the use of that park, in my opinion, might be about 40% of the time. And I would think to myself, why spend money on RSJs and lamination and everything if it's just a cosmetic feature? Why waste that money? You might as well just have an open park. So maybe you can inform me your logic behind that. Moving the chambers. I read in the Kapi Mana that you're thinking about moving the chambers. I find the chambers up here quite adequate. I think it's a want by council, not a need. If you go downstairs, yes, you might have better access for wheelchairs and things like that, but you also make yourself more vulnerable to unwanted guests, shall we say. So I don't agree with that. As for decorations for the council chamber and everything, fine, but I don't see why as a ratepayer I have to pay for the commissioning of that artwork and then installing. If there's groups in the community that want to have artwork in the chamber to show their influence in the area, I have no problem. But you pay for it. You pay for the installation. Don't put it on the ratepayers. I know these are radical ideas, but they're out there. The other thing, I sat on a meeting here about Spencer Landfill and receiving fines for odours and things. Oh, shit. I spoke to the gentleman who was in charge. He was at this meeting. And I'm not sure from that conversation what the answer is, but I'd like council to tell me, do we own Spencer Landfill? Yes or no? And the other one, which was this morning, unfortunately, as an old person, I parked my car downstairs, I went to pay my money in the meter, and I found, whoopee-doo, doesn't take coins. You've got to have a payway card. I'm an old pensioner, I don't have a payway card. So if I don't have a payway card, how am I supposed to pay my parking fee? No, the one down here has no coins. Anyway, that's my 4 minutes, and I'll stop because I'd like some answers if I can get them.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, just as a note, so you're aware, usually for speaking in a public forum, we can hear submissions and ask questions, but it's not usually a discussion. We were able to answer lots of your questions. We just don't have the time for that around these meetings. Okay. What I can definitely say is that I think your points have been noted, and in particular around some of the concerns you raised around major spending things, around, for example, the council chambers. Any decision like that would go into the LTP if we were to make it, and that would mean there would be the long-term plan, and that means there will be considerable engagement, consultation opportunities if we were to look to make that sort of decision. But we certainly haven't made a decision to move the chamber. I think that's probably all I'll touch on for now, just because we don't have much time. Unless, did anyone else want to quickly speak to any of those things? Yeah, Wendy?
Just to say, Graham, if we can have your contact details, happy to provide those answers to you. Some of them are decisions made by previous councils, and some of them are, reasonably straightforward to answer. But if I can have your, somebody may already have it, but that we will undertake to get back to you on those.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks very much, Graham. And noting as well, I understand we do have your contact details. I've just confirmed with Jack, so we can get that sorted. All right. So that's the end of public forum. I'll move now to conflict of interest declarations. Are there any conflicts anyone would like to declare? There appear to be none. Notification of extraordinary business. There are no items of extraordinary business. We'll move to the confirmation of minutes from the 7 September meeting. I'll move those minutes and ask for a seconder. Councillor Leggett, thank you very much. Are there any changes to those? No, in that case, I will put them. All those in favour? Opposed? That is carried. All right, that moves us on to our items for today. Now, I just want to note I am switching around the order of the items. We're going to do Access Kenepiru first. I anticipate that there may be slightly more discussion around the Adventure Park item, so we'll move through the other one first. So I will move that report 7.2 to open it for discussion. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Baker, thank you very much. I will invite officers to come and speak to the report.
Morena councillors. On my right, I've brought today Fraser Fleming. Fraser is our program manager for the Access Kenepiru suite of projects. The paper we brought to you, as I believe, is relatively straightforward. It summarises a process we've been through with Waka Kotahi, through a cost scope adjustment process, which took a long time, much longer than it should have taken, and the consequence was we pushed money out from this year to next year. That funding from Waka Kotahi has now come through, and we wish to bring some of that money we've pushed out back into this year so we can progress these projects. the amount we're wanting to bring forward is 5.3 million of the total that we pushed out, so about a third. And happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions would like to speak? Councillor Leggett.
Just a question in terms of I'm fully in support of this. I mean, it's a shame that it's taken so long to get to this, and it's Waka Kotahi's fault. But do you think, because we've been round this table many times about CapEx, have you taken a reasonable viewpoint about the amount of money you can spend this year to effectively spend our money as well as Waka Kotahi's money?
Yes, we have. The Package A, which is the Waiha Kenepuru intersection, is ready to be constructed, and that's a vast chunk of it. The property, those agreements are with the owners, it's ready to go, and that was in accordance with the previous council direction. The remaining 3 smaller amounts is we've spoken with the various project managers and what we believe they can viably achieve this year.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Hayward.
Ngā te mauri hia mana, kia ora. Thank you for your item, Daryl. 2 questions. One, can officers give any clarity around are there any immediate debt impacts that obviously this project has been covered in the LTP in terms of the provisioning overall, but are there any debt impacts as a consequence of reprioritising it back into this year?
Through the chair, I'm wondering if I can pass that to finance.
Yeah. Councillors, you recall that this year's capital program was in the order of 184 million, of which you've funded 70% for the annual plan. So moving this money around will obviously have an impact, but the question is, will the overall program still be delivered? In other words, will our original estimate be exceeded? And history would suggest that we'll have carry forward, so there won't be a rating impact.
Second question, which is actually being alluded to already by the previous answer. Should officers be foreshadowing that there is going to be an impact on the fiscal commitment that the council is going to need to make, probably during the LTB process, about cost overruns or expansion of the costs because of the delays that Waka Kotahi has enforced upon us?
Through you, Chair. Next week we're having a workshop on the overall capital program, and I think that's the opportunity to actually consider the costs not only for the current projects but also going forward. Quite clearly, if you looked at the long-term plan, 2151 LTP, the projects that were identified in that will obviously cost more going forward because of the cost pressures that we've experienced the last couple of years. So the workshop next week would be the opportunity to have those discussions.
No more questions, but I just have a comment to point out that it has already been mentioned by previous previous speaker, Councillor Leggett, about the role of Waka Kotahi in this. And I would hope that officers are able to re-communicate to Waka Kotahi what this means for ratepayers when delays like this are created. We have such limited resources at our disposal to do these projects. And we are obviously, and this report illustrates a conscientious effort by officers to work in good faith to get this project completed. But there is a huge cost for every delay that Waka Kotahi has created in this specific context, and it needs to be communicated correctly. Kia ora.
Right, I've got Councillor Duncan and... Oh, actually, yeah, if Andrew wants to speak to that.
Well, through the chair, it's an ongoing conversation that the sector has with Waka Kotahi. Central government has a different funding cycle to local government, so even as we move into our LTP from 1 July 2024, we can never quite guarantee what they're going to give us. So I agree with everything the councillor has said, but I also take the view that I'm very pleased we actually got the money out of them. We want 52%, and next year 53% of every dollar we spend for roading. But on this one, I think, I'll use the expression, we've done our head in with the number of emails, the conversations that have gone on saying come on, this is really important work for us, and we've lost money because we've had to put things on hold. And the Downer example is they were all ready to do that intersection. They had manned up, they had the equipment, and it's cost us to have them go and do something else and get them back on site. So the seriousness of the situation, I think this report, putting it in the public domain, it serves as a record, and it's right there in front of Waka Kotahi. Knows that they've got to do better, and we've got to do better to come together and understand those budgets moving forward. But again, I'd just make the point, the first year of an LTP is very difficult. We try and get it so that we get as much government money to assist ratepayer money, but we've got to try and get it right. And there's a magic in that. You don't want to miss out on any government money, but you do not want to ratepayers if the government money isn't there to match. So an ongoing conversation with them.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I've got Councillor Duncan followed by Mayor Baker.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Mine, look, I appreciate the mea culpa from Waka Kotahi on this, but mine's a specific question about the Package A at Keniperu Raiha. It includes upgrading the roundabout and associated improvements, including pavement and drainage. Now, I've been approached by a business owner in Wool Place there who's complaining about the amount of flooding going through his property already. Is this drainage improvement likely to improve things for him, alleviate them, or is it likely to exacerbate that?
The drainage we're talking about is purely associated with the intersection, so it won't, unfortunately, it's not addressing the wider matter, but we should not be exacerbating the situation.
Mayor Baker.
Not really a question, it's really fully support it. These roads actually are our main entrances into our city, and I personally get so many complaints, so I'll be pleased to see it brought forward and get done. Reminder that we did get an increase in our fare rate from Waka Kotahi, and our neighbours around the region didn't, so thankful for that, but just I'd like the job done. Thank you.
I agree. Any other speakers? Councillor Filo.
Just to say that I support the recommendations. I feel like a dollar spent now is always a lot cheaper than a dollar spent further down the track. So, yeah, happy to get this work underway for our residents.
All right, well, in that case, there appear to be no more questions. So I'll go ahead and put the motion. All those in favour? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. All right, we now move back to item 7.1, the Adventure Park. So what I will do on this one is I just want to note that everyone is aware of exactly what the recommendation is here. So I'll move it to get on the table, noting that the recommendation that we are moving is for option 5 in the report. So I will move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Leggett. I will hand over, I believe, to Wendy to speak to this.
Yes, I think the report is pretty self-evident. Great project, but for a number of reasons, including our own financial position, not a time that we can really consider investment. If the council were to decide otherwise, we would have to put it in our long-term plan. So I think the paper is silent on, or it's buried in there perhaps somewhere, but so that would have to be a consideration into the public. But I think the recommendations are straightforward. I don't know if you all read stuff this morning. It's my habit to read it on a regular basis, but certainly the journalist has almost vindicated our position in that Porirua Adventure Park are now saying that they have had a lot more interest from the private sector, which wasn't true a couple of months ago when they were struggling. So that is a different take from our most recent conversations. So heartened to hear that, because it is a fantastic project. There is some risk in the 2 phases. I think that's outlined in the report. We always saw the gondola as the issue that would bring us bring the city the maximum advantage. To have that deferred into a second stage, and we all have seen projects that don't ever get to the second stage, does compound the risk for the council. So, but I'll leave it there. I think the information is in the paper.
All right, we'll move into discussion and questions. First, I have Mayor Baker and then Councillor Leggett.
Thank you. I support option 5. As much as this will be a fantastic thing for our city if it ever kicks off, I think this is across 4 councils now, started in Mayor Leggett's days in the very beginning, and it's gone on for a long time. If we do get the gondola, I would like to make sure that it did take bikes up there. This started out as a mountain bike track park, and then we lost that. So for me, the whole project needed to be around the bikes. I fully support it if they can get their own funding. Development must pay for development and not the council, in my view. You've seen we've already spent $750,000. I would like to know, have they paid their resource consent fee yet? Because all other developers pay their resource consent fee, and this is quite a large amount of money that is outstanding. So I'd like confirmation of when that is going to be paid, or if it's been paid, because it's not fair to other developers who pay their bills up front. So, if they can get it off the ground, I'm all for it. But at the moment, option 5. Thank you.
I understand the resource consent fees remain unpaid.
All right, thank you. I've got Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Chair. I will also be voting not to approve any additional funding. Others may wish to comment, as the Mayor has done already, and I will, about how potentially great this project is, and I'll agree with them. However, the fact is that Porirua City Council simply can't afford to be exposed to any financial risk related to the project as we've been asked. And as the Mayor has already said, we've already spent $750,000 on this. This council and previous councils have already nailed our colours to the mast with our commitments to spending on sorely needed infrastructure. And my key focus going forward is certainly to see that we keep up this momentum as much as we can, given our current financial circumstances. It's all about priorities. So I wish Darren all the best with obtaining private funding for the Porirua Adventure Park. I do hope it goes ahead and that council can play its appropriate role in making it happen. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Leggett. Next I have Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, the gondola and the ancillary parts of this had potential to be a game changer for Porirua and a real tourist attraction. The surf facilities are just lipstick on a pig, really. They're not going to change the game at all for us. And the potential for us to have some collateral to actually back us in funding it has been taken out from underneath us. So there would be nothing there that we could actually claim on should the whole thing not work out the way it was planned. I think it's a great idea and I wish Darren all the best. But are there any levers we have to enforce the payment of this this $230,000 that's outstanding? That's a lot of money to our council.
We have normal debt collection provisions, we will follow those.
Okay, well, I support the option put forward here, and I wish Darren all the best, but yeah, good.
Thanks, Councillor Duncan. Are there any further questions or comments? Councillor Johnson.
Look, I'd just like to finish and say that I'm on the note that I'm encouraged that private sector is looking at it. My support for this project has really been about supporting business growth in the city centre and the economy in Porirua. But currently, when we're faced at the table with infrastructure projects and various social concerns around housing and things, it just can't be a priority. But I'd really like to see the private sector getting together and working quietly in the background. I think there's no doubt about it that a gondola has been the game changer in terms of an asset that would encourage more business to sit under that model. So, yeah, I agree. And I hope we can support any inquiry from sector, but definitely don't want to see any more council funding.
Cool, thank you, Councillor Johnson. I have Councillor Ford online.
Kia ora, thank you. Look, when this project first came in, I think I was around with the Mayor as well when Mayor Leggett was the person in charge, and I was a firm supporter of it because of the job creation for our rangatahi, and I've always said that every time this has come to the table, that was the big winner for me and the work experience that it provided for our people. However, I can't find it in myself to support any other option except option 5, so that's where I am today.
Cool, thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Filo.
Well, morena. So there was a lot of information in this report, so I thank officers for that. You might be surprised, but I support the officers' recommendation. It honestly, I feel like since that workshop, that sort of an old kōrero now, and it seems, especially from the staff article and just from other conversations, that Porirua Adventure Park has moved on. It's great news that they've got the private sector to fund that gap. We all know that it is, or are working towards it, and so I think that we all know the benefits. Obviously, it fills all our 4 wellbeings. It's in our strategic direction. It covers 2 of those. There is a real lack of tourism development in the region, so this is something that will not only be a benefit for our city, but the whole Wellington region. And I think it's great that they're in a more positive position, and it seems like we just sort of, as a council, maybe just need to now get out of their way and help them just get on with things. And after reviewing the report, it seemed there was a few questions around Ngāti Toa's involvement. Where was it? Yeah, it was mentioned a few times. Point 40, 41, 42, point 93, and in the reversibility section on page 21. So it seems like these questions could probably be answered, and I would suggest maybe a sit-down of the 3 CEs, our CE, Ngāti Toa, Uncle Helmut, and Darren. And through the chair, I would request that our CE arranges this hui to help things move forward with the variation to the lease. Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to speak to that, Wendy?
Yes, happy to always have an open door on this one, because it would be, fantastic for the city. Ngāti Toa's position, while not 100% clear, and I'm not sure if Taku is online yet, but we're not party to those negotiations, but enough has been revealed about that for us to know that any investment from Ngāti Toa is, number one, not finalised, and number two, contingent on investment after a build, after construction. So that means that the gap for the Adventure Park Company, basically they have to find that investment gap up front, and then Ngāti Toa would come in later. That is my broad understanding of the arrangements. And of course it does leave the council without any security. So that's why the investment decision, would carry much greater risk for us. So aside from those broad principles, we know nothing more than that. And certainly I have spoken to the CE at Ngāti Toa about that. Have we all three sat in a room? Not for some time, but, certainly we can reconvene when Helmut is back.
Thank you. I think that would be a really good move forward.
I thank you, Councillor Filo. I have Councillor Wehapi.
Thank you. I don't think there's much I can add that's already been said. But back in the day, I did support the original proposal, already building on what we had there with the mountain biking. But I do understand the climate that everybody's in the last couple of years, so things have had to change. However, I can't see the whole of our Porirua community benefiting from a surf facility at this time, which is why I agree with option 5, not financially supporting it. We have people knocking on our door every day of the week asking for money. Community groups, if we could invest our money, every day and give money away, we would, but we can't. It's actually not our money, but anyway. So for that reason, I will be supporting option 5. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wehapi. Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora no. I am heartened by the conversations held by councillors around the table on this discussion. And I thank officers for the expanded detail on the various options council has, officers have brought forth for council to make a decision on. My view is I'll be supporting option 5. I think Councillor Filo's point about the 4 well-beings is well-founded. My personal view, however, is that when it comes to issues of economic development, there needs to be a higher degree of stringency in terms of our ability to put any of our putia towards any projects. And that's primarily because the way that local government has always been set up. It always has its hand tied behind its back when it comes to benefiting from the economic growth from the commercial sector when we invest in that. So I'm noting, the initial estimation of $40 million of economic growth to the region when the project was first scoped out. And obviously a staged approach will change that significantly. As part of my deliberations, I'm mindful of the number of times over the 1 and a bit terms that I've been a councillor to hear from hear on this proposal from the company itself and from officers. And my view has always been to maintain that stringency. And I do recall once, and I think one of the later workshops, that my concerns have not been met. So I cannot, in good conscience, look at this from the level of stringency I need to make a prudent decision. Furthermore, councillors have already made a comment about the impact for the local community and the economic growth and the jobs that are created here. I note that, typically speaking, and that's not necessarily to say this would be the case in this instance, that jobs in the tourism and hospitality space have a medium income which is significantly lower than some other industries, for instance, construction and trades. Last night, many of us councillors were at the Porirua Youth Awards. There was a young tāne from Bishop Viard College whose name escapes me, so aroha mai to that tāne, because his story talking about what he wants to do in the future is to become a plumber and eventually own, that's it, apologies, and eventually own their own business. It would give me great pride of that, kind of enterprise community for a person like that to stay here, build a business, build a future here in Porirua. I'm not asking for us to support him to open his own business, but I think this is the point that if this project goes ahead and we had money that we had put as a council into that, as opposed to working on some of our civic infrastructure, our roads and our pipes, then it would make me feel uncomfortable to take Seal up on that gondola up the hill and point out every single pothole that we could have used that same money towards helping out. So with that, I've given my view, my 2 cents. Kia ora.
Thanks, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Waddle.
Considering I'm the only one who hasn't spoken yet, I thought I'd be rude not to add my 2 cents. I think, this goes back, as we've talked, this goes back multiple terms. This is before my time on council and yours, Councillor Hayward. And the original decision to underwrite this was a risky manoeuvre by the council, and it was a contentious decision. And I think, we're lucky that it has come to the point where it's cost us $750,000 at this point. And I think to do it again with what we know now and what has happened in the last few years, you can blame COVID or you can blame the economic climate. But these are things that come around in circles or cycles, and we've just got to make the right decisions for our city. I think the original idea of a gondola was great. I think gondolas are something that's accessible to more people than a surf facility. I struggle to stand on a skateboard without falling off, so I don't hold much hope on a surfboard. But a gondola would be great to share the top of Rangatui, a beautiful part of our city that not many people can actually access. And I think that would have been a great option. I really hope that Darren and the Adventure Park team are successful in getting the private investment that they need, because this would be amazing for our city. But I will be supporting option 5.
Thanks, Councillor Waddle. I've just got a few comments, I guess, that I'll make as well to wrap us up. I believe everyone has had a chance to speak. I'll just check no one else wants to speak again to any of the points that have been raised. The position that I come from on this is that the business case for any investment council makes needs to be very, very strong. And I think that comes doubly so for any business outside of our core roles. And the simple reality, there's just too much risk here for us at the moment, particularly in the current economic environment. And there are other major expenses on the horizon that we're all thinking about that we need to be prioritising as well in our long-term plan next year. The reality is, something like this, if it is a rock-solid investment that will guarantee a really, really good return, then the private sector will invest. And if it's not, then it's not the role of council to step into the breach and shoulder that risk that the private sector isn't willing to bear. So either way, in my view, it's not the council's role to invest for something like this. I think the point made by Councillor Wehape was a really good one. We have a lot of people asking us for money, and lots of major priorities and things that probably need to come ahead of this in terms of the core role of council. I think about the infrastructure investment that we need, the climate resilience projects we're going to be needing to look at in the next long-term plan cycle. Cultural activities that we want to make sure we can continue to fund in an environment where we have constrained finances as well. And to me, all of those things are higher on the priority list. So I'm really glad to see that the private sector seems to be developing more interest. I do genuinely really hope that this goes ahead, and I wish them all the best. But I also will be supporting option 5. So with that, I will put the motion for option 5 and no further investment from council. All those in favour? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. That brings us to the end of our business. We do have a workshop. I will note that we will do a closing karakia at the end of that workshop. And so with that, I will end today's meeting at 9:39. Thanks, everyone.